Welcome everyone to NASCAR Heat 2 coverage here at Knee Pit Gaming. So today's video is about the one thing that you absolutely must do before you can hit the track and worry about how fast your truck, Xfinity, or Cup car is. So before we worry about lap times and grooves and engine temperatures, we need to set up our wheel and pedals so that they behave in the way that we would prefer. And notice how I said that you would prefer, because there are no right or wrong settings here. It is all a matter of getting the car to feel the way you want it to feel, and that starts with the wheel and pedals. So here at the main menu, we're going to choose the very last option, which is, oddly enough, options. So once we click on options, it takes us to the second screen, and we're going to choose controls, which is the second option. Now we're provided with a new screen, which allows us to pick on controller, which is misspelled, by the way, wheel, or launch config tool. So I figure you already know if you're going to use a controller or a wheel. But why would you use the launch config tool? Well, you're going to use this if you're using a wheel and pedal set that is not officially supported by the game. Okay, in our case, I am using a Logitech G920 wheel and pedal set, so it is officially supported by the game. So we're going to choose the wheel option. Just a word of caution though, the one time that I did try to use the launch config tool, it crashed the game, so keep that in mind. Hopefully your results will vary. For now, we're going to come back over to wheel, select that, and we're presented with a wheel setup screen. Now this is asking for the number of degrees of rotation that you have in your wheel. In our case, the G920 has 900 degrees of rotation, but you can see that I have the ability to reduce this all the way down to 90 degrees. So you should choose whatever degrees of rotation your particular wheel and pedal set has. In our case, as I mentioned, we're 900 degrees. We're going to leave it on that setting and choose accept. So now we're to a screen that looks more familiar to what we saw last year in the NASCAR Heat Evolution title. And this is the real meat of the matter. This is what we're going to be talking about. Okay, we're going to be talking about steering sensitivity, brake sensitivity, throttle sensitivity. Let's start with steering sensitivity. Right now, the slider is right in the middle. Okay, and what that does is right in the middle will approximate a 1-to-1 rotation. And what I mean by that is 1-to-1 simply means if you turn the wheel on your desk 90 degrees, then the wheel you see in the game on the screen should turn about 90 degrees. I say about because it's probably not going to be exact. It's going to be off a little bit, and that's why we have a slider here to change this up. Now, if I move to the left, then the steering becomes less sensitive. And what that means is that if I turn the wheel I'm using and I'm holding 90 degrees to the left, then the wheel on screen might only turn half that much. It might only turn 45 degrees. So the farther to the left I turn the steering sensitivity, the more I'm going to have to turn the wheel in order to get the car to turn the same amount in the game. All right, and here in just a few minutes, we're going to use the test sensitivity function here by pressing X, and we're going to look at what that looks like in real terms. Okay, for now, I'm going to put this back in the center, and we're going to move to brake sensitivity. All right, brake sensitivity and throttle sensitivity are a little bit different. All right, brake sensitivity all the way to the left would approximate the complete throw or travel that you have with your pedal. The same thing goes with throttle sensitivity. If you want, like you can see, I am using brake sensitivity all the way to the far left. And that is because I don't want the brakes to be any more sensitive than they absolutely have to be. If I need to use a lot of brake, I will simply push the pedal down farther. That's the way I prefer it. But again, it's all based on preference. You may find that you want to move this up closer to the center, or who knows, maybe even farther to the right. So for now, I'm going to leave it all the way to the left. And then you can see on throttle sensitivity, it works the same way. However, I've moved it a couple of notches over from the far left, closer to the center. The reason I've done that is because there's something about the throttle pedal on the G920 that sometimes doesn't want to quite register 100% throttle. And one of the ways that I can get by that and ensure that I'm getting 100% throttle is to simply move the slider farther to the right. I would prefer to go all the way to the left, but I find that sometimes it doesn't quite trigger full throttle as much as I would like, and it seems to bounce back and forth between, say, 95 and 100% throttle. Well, I don't want that. This is a racing game, and when I'm at full throttle, I want to make sure that the engine is at full throttle in the game. So I simply move it up a few notches to the right in order to make sure that the throttle is a little bit more sensitive and does indeed get me all the way to full throttle. Okay, force feedback strength. I'm going to max this out to start out with. And again, this may be something that over the course of playing the game, I may come in and move this down a few notches, or I may leave it alone. We'll see. Impact effects are during wrecks. Do you want those on? And then your shifting type. For me, I'm going to use the paddle shifters that are on here on the wheel, but you could also use the stick shift if you have a stick shift with your wheel and pedal set. Also, it asks, do you want to use the clutch with the stick shift? And I'm going to leave that off. For one thing, I don't have the stick shift, but I'm not going to be using the clutch in this game, so I'll leave that setting off. So now, let's get back to testing the sensitivity. We're going to start off, remember, steering sensitivity is directly in the middle. I'm going to press X, and then I'm going to simply turn the wheel 90 degrees to the left. And you can see the slider goes basically to the very end, the far left-hand side of the line. Okay, now I'm going to return it back to the center. Press B to get back out, and now I'm going to move the setting all the way to the far left. Okay, now we're going to press X again, and I'm going to do the same thing with my steering wheel, move it 90 degrees to the left. Look at the difference it made. Not quite halfway on the line as far as to the left. So my steering is a good bit less sensitive, which means that if I want to turn the same amount, I'm going to have to turn the steering wheel farther. Now, this can be helpful if you find the steering in the game to be a bit twitchy, that the car changes directions too suddenly for you. One of the options you have is to simply come in and reduce the steering sensitivity toward the left-hand side of this line. Okay, so now I'm going to move this back into the center where I had it, and we're going to take a look at the brake sensitivity. Okay, once again, I'll press X to test the sensitivity, and I'm going to use very slowly, move all the way from the beginning with my foot off the brake all the way to full pedal. Okay, now the pedal actually maxes out at about 95% of the travel of the pedal, so that's good for me because it means I do get full brake if I need it. Now, if I turn the sensitivity up, let's go all the way to the far right. Now I press the sensitivity, and now suddenly I am at full brake well before I have reached 100% of the pedal, and the pedal's to the floor. Now I reach full brake pedal at about probably 65 to 70% of the travel on the pedal. So if you want a brake pedal that is very sensitive and get you to full throttle very quickly, then that's the way to do it. Increase that brake sensitivity. Same thing goes for the throttle sensitivity. If I start with it all the way over to the left, we press X to test the sensitivity, and then I go all the way full throttle. You can see that I'm at full throttle right now, but there's still a little bit left at the top of the graph. I actually have to move my foot around on the pad of the pedal to sort of adjust its position, then it reaches full throttle. That's what I was talking about earlier, about how for some reason with the G920 pedals, it doesn't quite pick up full throttle as easily as I would like. So now I'm going to move this slider all the way to the full right, as highly sensitive as this pedal can now be. And let's test again. And now I reach full throttle at somewhere around 65 to 70% of the actual travel of the paddle. So once I reach about 65 to 70% of the range that I can press the pedal, it doesn't do any good to press it beyond that. Okay, so that's an extremely sensitive throttle pedal. So I'm going to back way off of that. Now, I don't want to go full left, as I mentioned. So I'm going to go about 3 notches over. Okay, so force feedback strength, if your wheel supports force feedback, then how strong do you want it to be? I'm going to start off with it as strong as possible as the game allows, and then I will adjust backwards from there. If you like for a very heavy pedal and a very heavy wheel, then this is the setting for you, all the way to the right. If you prefer the force feedback be very weak, then you'll want to move this slider back toward the left some. Okay, again, impact effects. What do you want to feel whenever the car hits the wall? And then the shift type, I'm going to leave as paddle. So hopefully this helped you out. Hopefully this gives you the information you need to set the wheel and pedals up as you see fit and what meets your personal style. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and either I or someone else will do our best to try to help you out and make sure you can get maximum enjoyment from the game. Thank you very much for joining me, and stay tuned for more NASCAR Heat 2 here on Knee Pit Gaming.